Gethsemane is where Jesus what? Prayed. Okay? And Jesus was in the place where olives were crushed. Right there, the black, when we get done, you just walk right up this wall and look down at that black little space that's in a cement circle. That's the air and light for the Grotto of Gethsemane that's beneath us, a cave that they have pressed olives in since the first century. That's where Jesus often probably stayed on the Mount of Olives. It was a public place that you could sleep in because everyone stayed with their olives while they were pressed. So it was kind of a place where you could sleep on the bench and it was okay. So Jesus often came here, only he came to a garden. And here, this is a walled, enclosed garden. There seemed to have been some garden he had access to. Each of these are olive trees. And what's interesting is when you get out there, they're about a stone's throw from each other. So you're in Gethsemane right now. So in your minds, we're in Gethsemane. What happened in Gethsemane? Look at verse 5. They come with their torches from verse 3, and they said, we're looking for Jesus. Jesus said, whom are you seeking? And they answered and said, verse 5, Jesus of Nazareth. And Jesus said, I am. Now look what happens. And when he said that to them, verse 6, they drew back and fell to the ground. All Jesus has to do is speak, and armies collapse in front of him. Have you ever thought about that? We are always looking for a bigger gun. Jesus speaks, and the sword of his mouth destroys all the armies of the world. He doesn't need weapons. He just talks. Okay, then they take him to Gallicantu, verse 12, and then they take him to Pilate, verse 28. So Gethsemane, in John 18, all it covers is Jesus revealing, I am. Now, go back to Luke 22, and I want to show you something, and this is what we're going to do here. The same events are in Luke 22. You read the chapter yesterday afternoon. Get back in your Bibles to Luke 22 and look at verse 13. They are in, where are they in verse 13? Luke 22:13. The upper room. Do you see that? They went and found this room prepared for the Passover. So in verse 13 of Luke 22, they're in the upper room. And then Jesus institutes the Lord's Supper. Then Jesus, in verse 31, warns Peter he's going to deny him. So keep tracking through the 22nd chapter. Now look at verse 39, because you should mark that you're here. It says in verse 39, and coming out of that Last Supper, that, remember, we've pointed to the dome over there at the place of the Last Supper on Mount Zion. It's, that cone-shaped one. They came to the Mount of Olives as he was accustomed, and his disciples were with him. And this is the Garden of Gethsemane, where they came to the place, verse 40, and Jesus said, pray that you don't enter into temptation. And verse 41, he was withdrawn from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and prayed. Jesus prayed over and over again the same prayer. How do I know that? Back up to verse 41, the last word. It says, and he knelt down and what? That is a middle indicative. That means nothing to you, except in Greek grammar, what that means is that Jesus didn't pray it once. It was ongoing. Aorist in Greek means one time. Indicative means it keeps going. So Jesus didn't pray one time, verse 42 that Pat just read, not my will but yours be done. Jesus prayed that over and over again.